I was called to order. We'll start comments from the public. We have one member of the public online. JT, if you'd like to speak, feel free to raise your hand and we will unmute you. Okay, we will continue to move forward. Minutes from our last meeting, June 24, 2025. They were distributed. Are there any changes, modifications that people would like to make? No. Hearing none, I'll take a motion for approval. There's a motion, second.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Unanimous. Thank you very much. On to the updates. The only update I have is I had the opportunity to meet with the first selectman yesterday to just bring him up to date, ask him a couple of questions relative to our process. And mentioned to him that the themes that were kind of emerging out of this group right now were that we needed to create a sense of place at Mariners Way. We'd like to have it as a sense of destination. That destination for what? Not clear, whether it's retail, whether it is recreation, some combination, whatever, but that was a theme that was developing. And also the theme of being connector, that from Main Street to the bridges, from here to Old Line, there was many connections that could be made with Mariners Way being thought of in the right way, and so like to do that as well. Told them about our work groups, which we'll be hearing more about, and then what I really wanted to talk to him about was who we are and how we have access, to things like funding. As there is money available for our work. The question is whether we can spend the money, whether we have to go to the Board of Selectmen to request that we spend the money. We are an entity of the Board of Selectmen. So where I think we left it was that, yep, the money was there as long as we are in a position where we are looking to spend the money for the purposes that the accounts were set up, and we can get into that detail in a minute if you want. Then we are in a position of just, saying to the Board of Selectmen, we'd like to spend this amount of money on this from the cannabis fund, from the TIF fund, from whatever. And as long as then we need no other approvals beyond the Board of Selectmen. So that's good. So we have access to those funds. We're not gonna have to go to town meeting. We're not gonna have to go through all of those things. So that's perfect. And those funds are not insubstantial. We have, I don't have the July 1 numbers, but I think in and around April, the TIF fund was about 130,000. Cannabis fund was about 170,000, and that was growing at about 20,000 a month. So I would say it's probably closer to 200,000. So resources for when we need. And then also Jennifer's not gonna like me saying this, but I also said I thought there were gonna be some grant opportunities coming down the road. And that we were probably looking for bringing some grants into helping out our work as well. Say that for those of you who don't know, Jennifer's the grant writer. So on top of everything else that happens by Jennifer, she is this is yet another task in her direction. So those are my updates. I don't know whether anybody else has updates.
Yeah, it's just two things. I finally got those damn pictures. How long did it take us? A while. So what I
It
had.
wasn't us though, it took Larry a while too.
Yeah, it took Larry, we went to the source.
Feel better. Yeah.
Right,
Right.
that did make us feel a lot better.
Yeah.
And what I did was I shot images and it was consistent with things that we've been talking about, which is, the beginning is buildings are taller, they're closer, they're more on the street. But as you move along, more side yard, more front yard, parking still in the back, but it gets greener. There's your bike lanes, there's your opportunities for, I'll say them because I know the DOT's not here, for circles and other ways to move vehicles
Hmm.
that don't come to stop signs and everybody looks at each other or looks at each other and looks at each other and tries to figure out who goes next. So that's kind of, they go in that kind of a sequence. They are from downtown Mystic. So I thought that was an interesting connector, because I go back to this connector theme.
Right.
And I look at this leg for us, getting us from the train station, from the seaport, connecting us to Old Line, being the connector, as opposed to the 154 to Essex, but being the connector off on to the marinas over there and eventually up to Essex, so that we can get from one point of the river at the point in Old Saybrook and get up to the river in Essex if we want to. So that's why I took these are the images that I shot. I don't know how we can get them, Jennifer, to they were large files that I had to send as smaller files that we'll figure it out.
Yeah,
We post them on the town website. Like where all the reports are and like a folder or something.
Yeah, I'm thinking maybe, we've used Dropbox before, and maybe we could make
Yep.
a Dropbox, and then everybody here could be on it, and be able to share things that way.
Yeah.
That would be great. I think before, I shoot my mouth off, get yelled at again. Talking about driving through, places with a 45, loaded 45. Again, I have a sense of humor, but I didn't have a bad sense of humor that night. Let's put it in our Dropbox so that we as a group have it. But again, I'd be very interested if you see the pieces that I'm talking about.
Yes.
And one of them, another example is where we used the floating zone. And so there's a building that was a printing press that was converted to ground floor commercial, 2 floors residential. Then immediately across the parking lot, then over there's Red 36.
Right.
They looked like they were built at the same time.
Mhm.
We were able to do that because we said it's gonna look like that.
Yeah.
And so now all in that area, they look like that. But they're not the same building, they're not the same, and they're not the same function, and you got your signage, you had all those things that get you to these locations and places that are a place. So, yeah, that'd be great if we could drop them in there, if people get a chance to look at them.
Right, I think it's a great idea because I can foresee over the next few months, we'll have a number of fairly large files. Like if we start working with the engineers at Jakers, and they'll be dropping stuff in too, so I think having a Dropbox that we can all access is a good idea. Okay, any other updates people have?
Oh, one more, yeah, and that is, my friend, Doug, can you tell about the map?
Yeah, so, Torrance. Torrance came up as someone who could
Oh,
maybe
right.
print a map for us. His hours aren't clear in the office, I'd like to talk to him in person, but I couldn't connect, so I left a message in the office, sent him an email. And I just kind of conceptually said in the email, this is what we're looking for. I didn't have a chance to coordinate with Chris. But I said, we're looking for a large wall hanging. I said like maybe 5 feet by 10 feet. That might be too big, but some of these printers, they can make big
Yeah.
ones. And I think the discussion we need to have is layers. I had suggested, okay, if it shows lots and lot numbers, and then you could show the zoning and maybe some of the wetlands. If it's not too busy, I mean, Torrance is a very smart guy, so if it gets too busy, he can dial it back. Chris, you mentioned maybe layers. I guess I didn't quite understand that. Would we have like laminate that dropped down and you'd mark that up
Yeah.
and you could put
Yeah, or we could, you're right.
clear layers on top
Yeah,
of the
I mean, so
photo.
the idea would be, if, you know, we're interested in, let's just see what the wetlands look like this. Okay, well, what about wetlands with, you know, with environmental? Okay, well, it looks like this. Okay, take the wetlands out of there, let's look at the environmental.
So you're talking multiple
Yeah, I,
versions.
yeah,
Okay, instead of one master version.
Well,
well,
I guess the thought was, you got one map.
yes,
And then it is a series of, transparent overlays, but the overlays have then the wetlands. And so if you don't want the wetlands, you don't bring that overlay down, you just bring down.
So you literally take the thumbtacks out and put the transparency.
if we, if they can do that, that'd be great, you know,
Okay,
And we, and I think from that, at least the preliminary Thrive report, what I thought was really kind
Yeah.
of cool was they had those, idea of, here is the lot. And this part of that lot is, wetland, but this part, so we, it's not even divided within each of these lots as to where, developable land might be. So
yeah.
that to me would be the visual.
Yeah, so I think, and again, what that allows us to do, I think, moving forward. I mean, there are places where you're going to be able to build. There are gonna be other places that will be environmental issues where you can potentially encapsulate the building, not worry about it. We may have other issues where it gets damp, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna create a singular consolidated wastewater treatment facility, so all we can do is run pipes and not disturb, what's the toad or whatever got is on they get signs up. As you go down the track down there, beware of the toad or lizard or whatever it is, yeah. So, but we can watch that, we're not gonna invade those species at all, we could do those types of things. So my thoughts are for the original map, and this is just because I'm visual, is that it is the lots and the lot numbers, and maybe all we need. So give me my lot lines, what it is, and with the grades. And so that's all we need in the base map. From there, I mean, again, we need to know if it goes like this or like that. So that's kind of a helpful start. If it just goes straight up, then we know, well, we're not here to blast away
Right.
the saber. Let's go to the next lot.
Also, if we could do the state highway setbacks,
Yep.
right, so we could see how much,
that's a good point.
Yeah.
How much room do you have to work with?
We
Okay,
do have, Jacobson has done that analysis. So, in Chris's office, that analysis is available, so then Torrance could actually just, that could be an overlay.
Yeah.
the state setbacks.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
it's a.
the whole roadway there.
Okay. And also I'll share, we did receive from Jacobson all the Thrive study septic data
Oh, good.
for many of the lots, and they. We need to analyze this, the sub-team needs to analyze it, but they gave us, all right, this is how much septic capability you need for. These different functions, and here's what the capability is of all these lots, and then they've got some summary, kind of like the summary slides. Megan had sent that you were, I think I copied you on it.
Yes.
Yeah, but it's a lot of data that we need to process, but I applaud Jacobson for sending them over.
Yeah.
It was a good find,
Right.
and that was through Megan. She
Yeah,
passed them.
as I said, in my email, is that Doug's doing a great job bird dogging this stuff. And we just need to get a hold of this and talk about this.
Mhm.
Get ourselves on the same page, see if we're missing something, see if something's missing. See if there's somebody else out there that can help us shed some light on this thing, but you'll see that in what we're kind of proposing in this initial phase for our subgroup.
So were you actually able to see the Thrive report then at some point?
Yeah,
Cause I was having trouble sharing it with you.
Yeah, so I guess I
I
got,
don't, has the total report?
No, I haven't seen it.
No, the
think so.
final report is not been released, but I had a link but only I could look at it because I think they had,
There's a code, yeah.
yeah, because I tried to show it to Bruce and we couldn't make it.
Yeah, Megan had sent some stuff to Doug that he forwarded on to me. I don't think it was the full draft.
Okay,
But it was really those, looking at the lots along Mariners Way,
Oh,
the
yeah.
information they had, right? That was pretty much it.
Yes. And just to be clear, is the property across the street from the power load place, is that included, that little sliver? You know, when you're coming south down 95 and you get off that road and you come to the stop sign, the property to the left, right next to the highway? Is that included?
Mean underneath that,
In this,
Yeah.
yeah, I believe so, that's, it's
Yeah,
next
it's-
to,
it goes down past the, Mariners Way by definition goes down past Gladeview. And so the Gladeview entrance is beyond that point.
Okay, yeah, okay,
Yeah.
so it's both sides all the way.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm. And I think, we mentally, I mean, as we think about connection and stuff, we shouldn't stop, Yes, that may be where we could spend something, let's say the TIF dollars. The TIF district stops, and so we could only spend TIF dollars within the district. But if there were things that happened beyond, going down toward, going down Ferry Road down to the bridges. If there's things that we would want to recommend, we should clearly do that,
Right, okay.
well, especially with the park and now with the money going in.
right?
That
Right.
field there, okay, now we've got some passive public recreation that's gonna happen there, so if that's there. Then there's no reason for us to put another one half a mile up the road.
Yep, yep. Okay, well, that was a great segue into our work plan, subgroup work plans. Do you guys want to just carry forward and talk about where you are and where you're going?
We're ready.
You're done? Okay, check it out.
We're finished. So, as I said, Doug went out and did, again, he mentioned the COG and other places like that, and the connections. And he did a really good job opening up to Megan and open up to was it Bruce or
Susie Beckman. so
Yeah.
Too.
yeah. So all these people have been advised that we've broken up into subcommittees, which is, I think, very big. So now that they know what we're doing. And so what we're proposing to do in this our first phase is, you'll see in this memo that I kind of turned around today. And that, Doug and I talked about, which is that, step one is this due diligence phase. You'll see in the bottom of page 1. And that's why I say he's a bird dog. So again, anything and everything we continue to see, get our hands on, get all that diligence. As Doug has mentioned, we don't understand it all. We need to spend some time getting a common understanding of what that is, and really come up with what we think it is, and what we're not sure it is, and find the people that can help us out and have those conversations, so that, which could include greater outreach, but would provide us with the information that we need to get to the next phase, which is our fact finding. And the fact finding is really taking that information from the due diligence and getting out with this list, and having the answers. And then with that, we should be able to come away with what the next steps have got to be. We should have some indisputable facts. It's 100% wetland, and we can't do a thing there. It's 100% rock. You're not doing, so we have some things that are indisputable. We hopefully have some things that require additional due diligence, but we also hope we find things that are like great surprises.
Mhm.
We would come back to this group once we have that information. And part of that information will be us building out this picture
Mhm.
as part, as we're going through the wetlands, as we're going through the environmental and adding those layers. Once we get the map, that'll be part of this process, so that when we all sit down again, we'll be able to look at it and make sense of it.
What's your sense of timing? Do you have any idea of that?
I think the key is here, we're setting up, I'm getting my knee is getting operated on Friday, getting a knee replacement.
Good luck.
Thank you. So we've got Zoom call set up for the 23rd, 24th, 25th of July. Give me a couple weeks to get not on my feet, but maybe off of pain medicine.
I was gonna say, get the Percocet out.
Yeah, that'll assist, right. And I think it really is a question of what information we're provided, and how fast we can turn around, and how we, I think what the goal is, the next time we get together, we probably won't have a deliverable, but we'll have a better understanding of the answer to that question.
Right. Well, that's really, in my mind, what the purpose of the August 5th meeting would be. It would be really an update meeting.
Yeah.
And is that what the selectmen?
Well, it could be. We could
Okay,
start-
it's not necessarily.
Yeah, no,
Okay.
it depends how far we wanna be before we meet with them, but it might be a good just place for them to be able to weigh in as we say, here's the directions we're going, without really being locked in concrete at that point. So,
Yeah, if we have some rain days in there, I'll burn right through this, but if it's like sunny out, it makes it hard.
right. Okay, so is there anything at this point that you need other people's help on, in the sense of, clearly from my discussion with Carl, he was saying if we need him to make calls, if we need him to do,
Yep.
he's willing to jump right in and do it, so.
I think the core group that we have that have been identified to do this, and from this group, other names have come out of this, we'll continue to expand the list if we have to expand the list.
Mhm.
So that, the idea being in August should be thoroughly fleshed out.
Good.
Again, it's diligence and it's fact finding.
Yes.
Yeah. And our hopes are, that's where you guys say, we like this idea, we don't like that idea, have you thought about this one? And then we get a little redirection or some additional charge, and we'll take it from there.
Got it. Good. Okay, sounds great, good job.
Bruce,
Yes.
I have a hi. I have a question or comment or thought. I don't know. I heard the discussion about using Dropbox for everybody to sort of share data and maps and information, and I think that will be really helpful because I think we're all kind of looking for some of the same maybe not the same like layers of information, but the same, at least I think of a lot of the mapping will come from the same sources. Is there a way we could come up with like an index of available map sources, or I don't know, something to kind of organize the various mapping and other resources that are available? Just because it's hard for me to keep track of of all the different things.
So take that a little bit further. When you're talking about an index, are you talking about we index what we want to have on a map, or is there some exterior to us?
No, I'm thinking more like, could we keep a list of, okay, so we have this map from Jacobson. So this is like survey map, blah, 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 that has this data this information on it. And then we have this map from River Cog that has, or from, we have this map from Cog that has, these pieces of information on it. And then we have these maps from this study that provide, this information. Just because I think it's kind of like, I think DOT will also have some mapping. I mean, I know that like the state plan of development, you can go online right now and look at like the wetlands mapping as far as they have it available. I know our land use office has, like Chris has a lot of that mapping available, but I just feel like it's like all kind of out there floating, and I just think it would be helpful to, and then we don't have like multiple people trying to find the same resource.
Yeah, good point.
Well,
I don't
and one of the things that we point to is, recognition that the stuff that we're assembling, people may want to pile onto
Mhm.
and get their hands into, so having how it's set up, but having that, and again, you've got, and the index, and, it's here are the 20 things that are in here. And it gets updated as we,
Could it be done somewhat just with folders? Septic analysis or septic mapping, and that's what you're looking for, you dive into that.
Yeah, although I think that what might end up happening is like there may be some mapping from Jacobson. I mean, depending on what he has, but that has relevant like information that's relevant to Bruce and I from um from a roadway development standpoint and that sort of thing, and that may also have information that's, for example, relevant to you guys or something like that. So then yeah, I mean, I guess we could put it in more than one folder, but you might end up with some really big files in a lot of folders.
Yeah, I guess as you're talking, Casey, I'm thinking, have you gone on the town's, GIS, website, the Map Geo?
Yeah,
And
so
they,
like, oh, go ahead.
good, and they've got that, that capability to some extent, but they're not saying where the information's coming from, but in one site, you can do the overlays to be able to see how this works and that works, the 100-year floodplain, the wetlands, this, that, and the other.
Right. And like
And so
that's what the state has too. So what I'm suggesting, and we don't have to do this, I'm just kind of it's just like what came into my brain, is if we had a list that said like, okay, town GIS system, and then it listed like sewer mapping is available, uh road survey layer is available, wetlands mapping is available, or we had a series of boxes that we check off or whatever, columns that we check off or what have you, so that we know the town's GIS mapping has like these pieces of information. And then we have like Jacobson mapping, and maybe we even list the different map names or whatever, or plan names, and we check off what what he has available. And then we have like the Route 1 corridor study, and like what mapping can we find in that, just so that if I want to go and say like, okay, where can I find wetlands information, then I can reference that and know like which maps to look at, kind of. And then I feel like then we can kind of whittle it down to which ones we want to use for what we're doing.
Yeah, yeah, no, I
Maybe
got
there's a better way to do it. That's just my, like, maybe what Doug's saying, maybe that makes more sense. I just think if we could have some way to like, there's all these maps out there and all this information out there, and I feel like we're trying to accumulate it in some kind of, and like make sense of it in some way. And I feel like if we could kind of organize that, it would at least, I know it would be helpful to me.
right. So maybe one of the things we ought to do is, Jennifer, we can put the question to Chris. And we, because that's where the bulk of the resource is gonna be right now. And she could actually let us know what she has in the way of, various kinds of maps for Mariner's Way. And then we could figure out whether we, you know, what more we need above and beyond that.
Yeah,
But my guess is there's a lot of it, I agree with what you're saying, Casey, there's a lot of information that we don't have necessarily in our hands right now, but good to know that it's available.
yeah.
Okay. Sounds good. All right. Yeah, I understand, and well, we've got a few weeks before next time we get together, so we can figure it out. By the way, when are you leaving?
I'll be on the first 2 weeks of August.
First 2 weeks, okay.
And I made arrangements with Larry and to be here to get you guys started in August. He's gonna get available, so you're all set.
Okay, that's great. Okay. How's about you guys?
So we were thinking like how to go about, Tracy and I were thinking about how to go about talking with all the business owners. Do we have a big meeting first, or do we meet each of them individually first? So we decided meet each business owner first. And then you had said that you talked with
Wayne Ram.
yes, so we were gonna fill us in on that a little bit.
Right.
Do we do that at a different time? Yeah. So then we're gonna decide like a schedule of, you know, meetings with different people and figure out what's the easiest way, probably going to their businesses, just so you can get an idea of what they are. And then once we get through the whole list of businesses, then we can have maybe a bigger meeting, everyone together. Depending on what we find out, I guess, like, but either way, we want their involvement and all that. Just one-on-one and seeing how they even feel about this whole concept. And just,
Do you have access to ways to connect with
No.
those?
I don't know, I don't think you emailed.
I don't think I did, as you were
Okay, yeah.
talking.
So we just need the list from
right.
Jennifer first, and then, you know, we can pretty much start calling right away.
Mhm, mhm.
And well, not this week, daughter's sweet 16, so gosh. But next week even, and you know, like just kind of start reaching out and contacting, and we're gonna come up with like a schedule of how we do.
So then, by August 5th, you would have made some contact.
Some contact, because I know 1 week I'll be away in the middle between now and then, so, you know, we could do some early next, we didn't discuss the actual schedule yet,
Right,
because,
but bring us, but
Yeah.
at that point, it would be,
I mean, if we couldn't get through to a handful, I would say that wouldn't be any reason not to get at least 6 people, get in touch with 6 people by then, maybe more.
Do you know, like, the 6 people, who the 6 critical people are? That you need to have engaged?
I think we need to have everybody engaged.
Yeah.
So
You don't
it's
find six.
critical. Yeah, I don't think I think we can do more than that. It's just a question of, for example, I have no idea who we would even talk to about everything that's happened with, the custom marine area. I don't know who that, like, my understanding is that's a short-term 6-year, 8-year outlook for being here, and then the properties are gonna turn over again. You know, I certainly think we can talk to a bunch of the small businesses. I mean, I can start walking right next door and across the street and whatever. I'm not a phone caller, but Tina said she'd phone call and set up some meetings, so. I think we can talk to quite a few people. There may be some people who say they're not interested in chatting with us, but I would be really surprised.
I would too.
I think people would, you know, and Tina and I are, I think for me, you know, half of what this is about is literally putting our faces in front of people so they understand that, you know, we're 2 folks from Old Saybrook, whether it's we live here or we own property here, and we're on this committee, and we know there's been a lot of discussion in the past, but we're here and we're working on things. And so we want you to have a face. We want you to have our cell phones. We want you to feel free if you have an idea. Shoot us an email. So for me, a lot of it is just that outreach. And then if they have things they want to tell us, fabulous. You know,
Mhm.
so But again, it's hard, I think it's gonna be interesting who. Once we get the list from Jennifer, who we actually get in contact with, like, I know the people who own like the really small things, like. I know Wild Birds, I know Atwood Auto,
Mm.
you know, that kind of thing, but, you know,
Jennifer-
Havens next to me and I don't. Never see them.
Does your list include both contacts for the businesses or residents or what have you, and contacts for the property owners? Because I think those are not, I mean, I know they're not always the same. So like there may be a landlord that's in some other state or some other town that it's also in a different way that you guys probably want to get in touch with too. So Jennifer, do you know if those are like all on the list so that they?
We have a pretty good collection because we had to use it when we did the study with Cavoy. So, I mean, I know some things have changed over since then, so I'll probably need to just do a once over on it, see if it needs some updating. Before I pass them.
And what I can do is, I can see if I can figure out a way to meet with the, you know, the two gents that have bought all of that custom marine property and be able to, I think they are an important conversation to have.
Absolutely.
And let me see if I can figure out a way to make that happen.
Okay.
Some, maybe through Carl, but however the case may be.
I have another idea too.
Okay.
And what about, you know, there's a lot of small residences, and maybe we need the answer to that first, is, you know, there's a lot of teeny tiny residences, like I think of that house right next to Custom Marine.
Mm.
Is it a landlord, is it an owner? I know JT's an owner in, what is that, it's, Boston Post Road Place, which is a street right off kind of behind me. So I know there are, you know, should we just start with the businesses and then hit the residences later? I think with the residences, we're gonna have a lot of renters, is my suspicion.
Once
Yeah.
you
Quite a
find out
few.
it's like easy to find out the homeowners if we don't already know them, like
That's
through
true.
the tax,
The taxes.
stuff. That I
Yeah.
do like every day.
Small part of your life.
Yeah, so like, we can look at that up and it's, you know, we would just go by the homeowners,
Yeah. I have a-
property owners.
Yeah, I have a feeling. I'm thinking about a lot of the properties, the residences behind, like there's an auto body that's right on the road and,
Yeah,
yeah, I don't know. I just know the school bus stops.
Mhm,
Yeah.
mhm.
So
Yeah.
with the property owners, I know this is the first discussion, but would that include asking them if would be interested in selling at some point?
I don't think we start there. I think it's more, here's what we're doing. We'd love to have you as engaged as you want to be. And we will continue to give you information. And I think being able to know what we're doing relative to wetlands and developable land and things like that, that might help some of the property owners and say, we can come back and say, now you know better what can be done on your land. You know, as you're talking about the sewer capacities, things like that. Be able to say, it's your choice, it's your land, but here's some options that you may want to take a look at. Be able to see. So I think we build, but I
Yeah,
don't think we start.
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, we don't wanna be aggressive.
no, I think this is about
the
engagement.
outreach, like you said, it's just like
It's all out.
totally letting them know what we're doing.
And if they have thoughts already, great, but to know that they can. I assume email Bruce or, you know, contact us or know when the meetings are, you want. You know, you need me to set up a spreadsheet as someone who owns a business there so that I can. You know, email out for every time we have a meeting, hey, just a reminder, we're having a meeting tonight, if anyone wants to come, I'm happy to do that.
Mhm.
You know, if anybody wants to know that kind of stuff.
And then they might turn around, once they see the plans, they might be like, well, no one's ever gonna wanna buy our property on 95, but maybe the town wants it, you know, and that could probably just be a natural idea that they come up with on their own at some point.
Mhm, mhm.
Um,
Okay, That's good. So, that actually is a fairly good segue into,
Oh, sorry.
let's see if I can share this.
And Tina, I don't have any, I'm not going anywhere, so
Okay.
I'm up for your schedule.
Okay.
So, this is the work that Casey and I have been doing. And it follows a little bit along the lines of what I'd sent out just as a model. But there's a couple of issues here that are perfect for kind of our current conversation. But as you probably have seen, between the Route One corridor study, the 2017 Mariners Way Boulevard grant application that was put in, there's been a lot of work, previous thinking, shall I say, about what this stretch of road could look like. I think that the more I think about it, some of that may be more, you know, my terminology, highfalutin than needs to be. I mean, the idea of, JT's email about how we've got, 18-wheelers there, and so do you really know on a boulevard, but it may not be trees in the middle of the road, because I think DOT would not be real happy about that, but, what we do on the sides of the road in order to make the road keep sense of place. But anyway, so work has already been done. Jacobson has done some of that, so our first task outside of doing review of what there is to meet with the folks at Jacobson, whoever the right people there would be, and get information about the work they may have already done. I mentioned that they already have done the analysis, so we know what the right of way is and be able to have a sense there. And then that would be a good lead into meeting with DOT. DOT, from my understanding, is they don't want people walking in pie in the sky. Well, what do you think? They want some fairly concrete, if you pardon the term, ideas that they can help us kick around, help us develop. So I'm hoping that maybe with Jacobson we'd be in a position to do that. But it is still would be a very preliminary meeting with DOT. And I emphasize that because the next bullet, as you see, is meeting with the business and property owners. I don't think we want to get anything too detailed, too locked in until we get the feedback from them. So as you guys are out talking to them, you could say, look, one of the first things we're really looking at is how do we make the street, do a beautification on the street itself? What are your ideas? And this would be the opportunity to be feeding that idea in. I fairly randomly took dates just to be able to help my own thinking. So my thinking there was that we would actually meet with the property owners. I should have made that 9:15 instead of 8:15. But anyway, in mid-September, in that early to mid-September range, my experience in life is that nothing happens in August. So it's kind of this dark hole, so we'll get stuff done with a plan to actually do things in right after Labor Day. So it would be more like that 9:15 timeframe that we would plan for a meeting with the property owners, of which the streetscape concepts could be one, and there may be by then other issues out of this group that we would want to have as part of that meeting. So we'd kind of build to that meeting, and that would be that one. Then once we have some feedback from DOT, once we have feedback from the property owners and business owners, then we would, go outside and find somebody who could help us create some streetscape options. And that's why there would actually be an expensive funds there, recommending the cannabis fund for doing that. Reason for recommending the cannabis fund is because one of the 5 uses of the cannabis money is infrastructure in the area of where the facility is. So it would be a perfect use for what it is. So that would be good. And then once we have, you know, the next kind of level of detail around options, take those options by the end of October back to DOT and really begin to get some good feedback as to whether, you know, what works, what doesn't work, and begin to move it from there. So that's the, Casey, I'll stop there. Whatever else you would want to add to that.
No, I think that sums up what we talked about very well.
Perfect. Okay, so anyway.
So can I ask a question?
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
does this include the transition from the train station to Mariners Way, or is this just? Because that's a complex,
We will need to, that will be part of the conversation with DOT, I think.
okay,
I would like to. I think that we need to one way or the other. You know, I think we have to think about whether we want to do something as an add-on to the railroad bridge itself. Whether we want to talk with DOT or others about, can we put in some kind of pedestrian bike, bike bridge elsewhere, in Mariners Way, in order to be able to really make that connection and over to Ragged Rock, and then people could go right down Ragged Rock into downtown,
Yeah.
So I think those, all of those options would be part of this discussion.
On this, from 2014, it shows it starting at, Monkey Farm, basically.
Right.
Is it starting from Monkey Farm? Because
Um,
we keep talking kind of, well, I mean, we sometimes say the bridge, sometimes say like Mystic Market.
yeah, I think that we ought to be thinking about train station.
Over.
Yeah,
455, that
Yeah.
building.
yeah. So we would include the bridge there,
Mhm.
but it also, and we
So that's
talked-
like at the CVS,
Yeah.
traffic light.
Right, so we think about the, a transition from Main Street to Mariners Way. I mean, that would be the way to think that through. And I think one of the great things about the 2017 application was it wasn't one size fits all. It was a little bit, it was, on the west end of Mariners Way, this is how the streetscape would look, and then there's changes to it as you go down. And as we begin to think about potential uses, again, integrating with the work that other groups are doing, then we can think about how the streetscape would be able to best support those uses.
Mhm.
We end up with light or even heavier industrial down toward the highway entrance, then that might really dictate what the streetscape looks like, something along those. Okay. So that's our assignment. That's what we're gonna do. What I would say is, it sounds great to me. Everybody is moving. Why don't we plan on getting together at 5:30 on August 5th? We'll be sad that Jennifer is not with us, but she won't be sad. And then we will, if everybody else make it, is there anybody that can't make it?
I think we already said yes.
Yeah, okay, so that'll be the plan on that, and that will, again, we'll hopefully we'll all have been able to advance our thinking, and then I think at that point, we'd be ready to say, okay, are we ready to pull the trigger and say there will be a business and property owners meeting mid-September, because we need that amount of time to organize and get ready for that.
Yeah, I want to give people plenty of notice.
Right, right.
in the 8-5 meeting right now will not include the selectmen.
I haven't invited them, but that doesn't mean what, would you
It
recommend?
feels early, but.
Yeah.
I'll default to you.
I would agree.
It's early.
Okay, sure.
I think
We'll give them 9 of week. if they wanna know what's going on, they can look at the Zoom link anyway, so.
Yeah, there you go.
Figure they would. Okay, anything else that people have to offer? Hearing none, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you all very much.